Welcome to our Urban Legends podcast. I'm Dr. Gloria McDaniel Hall. I've been a teacher, a principal, and assistant superintendent, all within urban schools in Chicago and around the country. Our Urban Legends podcast is a forum for sharing ideas, strategizing together, and supporting each other as we dismantle the deficit narratives sometimes associated with urban education and discuss where and how amazing work is being done.
So good morning, everybody. Morning, evening, whatever time you're watching the newest edition of the Urban Legends podcast. I'm so excited today because my guest is Scheree Issa, who I first met at this amazing school that we have in common, which I'm an alma mater from the 1960s, and she was a current teacher there. And when I first met her, I already knew, I'm going to need to stay in touch with this amazing first grade teacher. And then all of a sudden, during this school year, she got a new position. Maybe it was the end of last school year. I'm not even sure. But anyway, she found out about this new position that she now holds, which is the Director of Student Success. And it got me to thinking because, and I'll let you hear from Ms. Issa, but what it got me to thinking is there's something about the way that I witnessed her connecting with her first graders that she's now rolled over into this role so that it's impacting all the students and their parents and the community of St. Thomas the Apostle in Hyde Park. So Ms. Issa, could you tell us a little bit about your journey in education, how you ended up even being at St. Thomas, but what's kept you there and what's motivating you now?
All right. So thank you so much for having me. I appreciate the kind words that were said about me. A little bit of history. So I have been at St. Thomas since my son was in pre-K 3. So I have been a parent since pre-K 3. He is now a fifth grader, a rising sixth grader. So this has been his only schooling with others since he was 3. So I started my journey off here as a parent, and I really enjoyed the community around St. Thomas. So that's what pushed me to apply. And my child care provider, her son was going here, and she was like, St. Thomas this and St. Thomas that. I'm like, well, let me give it a try. So we applied, we were accepted, and our journey began. I started off as a parent volunteer. I do have another child who is older, and I wasn't as available to be at the school to do things. So I said with this last one that I would be a part of the school life. So I started volunteering. I volunteered for 2 years, really actively volunteering. And then that point, I decided to retire from my 24-year career with Walmart. So I retired from Walmart and I found myself what do I do next? All I've ever done is retail. And so I was approached by the administration to work after school. I was like, okay, 2 hours, I can do it. I'm a mom, I know about kids. So I was an after school supervisor for half of a year. And then after that, he was like, well, do you want to be a TA, a teacher's assistant? I'm like, I guess. I'm like, after 24 years in retail, let's see what this education thing has to it. So I started working as a kindergarten teacher. Actually, let's go back a little bit. When I left the TA position, that's when the pandemic started.
Okay.
And we were told to leave in March, and I left. And then I came back in August, and they were like, Miss Issa, we don't have a kindergarten teacher. Could you teach kindergarten? I was like, huh? I'm not here. I'm a retail manager. Was like that. I love the kids so much. I was like, okay, I'll do it until you find somebody. So give you 2 months. And I fell in love with the position. I fell in love with seeing a student wake up when they learn something new and find something exciting about learning. So with that, I taught for a year, and then I was approached to get my master's degree, and St. Thomas put me through school with the Archdiocese to get my master's degree. I did another year in kindergarten, and then I transitioned to first grade for 2 years with my students. So that was like my journey into education, from being a volunteer to teaching.
That is an amazing story. I think the most passionate educators I've seen sometimes are the people who didn't have like that direct journey, but had like started as a teaching assistant, and they really get to understand the profession at a deep level. So tell us about your new position, the Director of Student Success, and what exactly you do with all those community partners that I've seen. I know I went into one event that you all had, and I'm like, oh my goodness, she did it. Like, they were like 20 partners. How did you even vet them all, number one? And then how did you find out what the kind of like interests of the students were so that you could put your program together?
So I was approached by the principal at the end of last school year to take this role. And I really wasn't excited about it because I liked the classroom. And he was like, I need you in this role because his nickname for me is She Gets It Done. I was like, okay. So I took on the position, not fully understanding what it was going to entail or even having a job description. It's like the principal had asked, he wanted an after school program. I'm like, okay. So what they previously did, they surveyed the students and asked them what type of programs would they like. So I took that information, and then I just started to cultivate relationships. And then when I tell you, Gloria, it's a lot of work with no work. There's no template. Again, I come from retail. We have standard operating procedures for everything. In education, I was like, okay. So I actively began looking at Facebook, going online, Instagram, just trying to find organizations that fit what the students had already asked for. Worked the entire summer, and I did not know that it was going to take an entire summer. But to your question, when I found an organization that I liked after I did my initial research online, then I was scheduling an appointment for them to come in or meet on Zoom to get a little bit more information about their organization. And to take it a step further, what's your lesson plan? I've been in a classroom. So how does A connect to Z at the end of your sessions with the students? So, focusing on making sure that whoever we bring in is still aligned, not with the Common Core standards, but with some type of alignment, some type of curriculum. Right. Because I felt that we needed that, because it's just unfair to have someone come in and like babysit for an hour and the kids they didn't get anything out of it. And I want their experience in aftercare to translate to other parts of their life. So it was a tedious journey, but with that journey, we ended up in August having to, I think that was the enrichment fair you came to.
Yes.
I had, asked everyone, I was like, so in order for this to work, I need for you to come to the school on the day that we had our bring your school supplies back. And so I had all the vendors in the gym room, your marketing material, so that you can showcase your talents and to possibly get students aligned with that. So that was kind of like the process to get the different organizations, but really focusing on what the students had asked for in their survey.
So give us like your top 6 or 7 programs that you're excited about that you have going on right now.
Cooking, oh my God. So I was able to bring in cooking the first session because honestly, funding is an issue and cooking class is not inexpensive. So I held off on cooking class until we kind of figure out what we were doing. So cooking class has been the most popular.
Okay.
The second, I would say, is soccer. The kids love soccer. They love that. And I really enjoy bringing that to them. I think third would be our art class. We have several of them, and it just really brings out that student who may not be academically strong, or you have a shy and quiet student. This allows them to be creative in their own world, giving material. So I think those three are my top one. But what I would say the most, I think the one I have two that are really passionate for me. One is the knitting, and the other is called Box United. So the girls do boxing. They have an SEL component. Both of these groups have young ladies in them who are very quiet. They keep to themselves. And to see the girls in the first session of the knitting, sitting in the room, at first they were quiet. Fifth, sixth session, they're having a great time knitting. And just like they just having a great time. But what took it even further, they're knitting at recess. They're knitting at lunch. They're knitting before school. They're doing it after school. So they have this, and this is their outlet. And I love it.
That is amazing.
It is.
That is amazing.
It is. And then Box United, this session, we kept our we had 5 core girls that were in it. And so there was another girl who wanted to be in it. And we were like, let's bring her in. And when I say her conversation has changed, she is more open. I was like, oh, she has a voice. Because she didn't have a voice before. She didn't even talk. I was like, okay, can somebody else talk? But she has a voice. And I love that we give them that opportunity to be themselves after school with a group of young ladies who they're comfortable with.
That is so cool. So I know that them being able to open up in the ways that you've described is also going to impact them opening up academically. So I know that there's going to be a connection. Is there a way, and this isn't a question we prepped, but is there a way that you can gather those data to make sure, well, not to make sure, but to just prove what the impact is of the work that you're doing on the students academically, or is that not even something?
I haven't really looked into that, but I would say that it has, but I can't make the correlation between the two. I do see them outside of the after-school enrichment programs, and I do see that. So something that I can't put to paper, but I can visually see that they've changed. I think I can capture that, but I just can't capture the academic portion of it.
I love it. So the reason why I have the podcast is because there's so much negative conversation about what happens in urban schools. And even though St. Thomas isn't in like an urban, what we would consider urban neighborhood, I consider it one of the most diverse places I've ever attended school. Like I remember in the 1960s walking into my classroom and there were all shades of kids. I walk into St. Thomas now, there's all shades of kids. And I know that our motto is God's people and
extraordinary variety.
We are an extraordinary variety at St. Thomas, and it's always been that way. I saw pictures of the 1950s. Same thing when Chicago was one of the most segregated places, well, still is, but segregated places ever. That hub right there has been a place where people just like if the whole world could be like that parish.
Yes.
When I go to church, if the whole world could feel like that, it could be St. Thomas could be a model. So even though we're not just an urban school, how are you like in your goals of, like if you were to say to someone who was at an urban school, this importance of making those community connections, community partnerships, strategically based on what the kids, need, but also like what the adults might need, like you've embraced the whole thing. What could we do? What message can we send of positivity to urban schools based on the work that you've done, based on what St. Thomas represents, just like globally, what can you say to dispel the myths of what happens in urban schools?
I would say it's time to think outside the box. It's time to think outside the box. I am a parent and I have 2 children. My first child, I think that I wasn't more in tune. I did have her in extracurricular programs and activities, but I think in this day and age, it's more than ever needed. And I think that a school can provide resources to students and parents at an affordable price, but you have to do the work. You have to think outside the box. So what do I mean about that? So we offer programs Monday through Friday. On Wednesdays, we have a 2-hour program because we get out of school early. We have 2 household parents and they both work until 5 or 6 o'clock at night. You know, there's multiple things going on in the home. So why not make it accessible where when you pick up your child, they've had their 8 hours of academics and then they had some enrichment. They had some time with their friends. They're building community all within that one building. And I love it because once we start to build that community inside the school, it actually trickles out outside. So, for example, we had an organization for flag football come in and he just put his little flyer out. And I was like, who's that? So I'm that person like, who are you? What do you do? How can I bring it to St. Thomas? How can I make it better? His program is not housed at St. Thomas, but I gave him an outlet and an entryway into St. Thomas to host 2 free programs. And after that, we had 10 families sign up with his organization that's on 119th at the Croc Center. Mm-hmm. They probably would have never known about it. But because I brought the community to us, we're able to go outside of the community. And I think that it makes it even better. And my son joined this particular team. And I asked him the first day, what was cool about it? He was like, it was a lot of kids, about 250. He was like, but there was a sprinkle of some St. Thomas people. And it was great for me, too, because I had to sit out there in the cold. But it would have been harder without people I knew. So it's making sure that we provide opportunities because there are so many different organizations out here that are wanting to be in our schools in some capacity. And I think if we open up our doors and have that conversation, that we can get them in the building. I am blessed to have this position because I've talked to numerous orgs and they're like, so who do I talk to like you at the other school? I was like, there's nobody like me. I'm sorry. There's nobody in the Chicagoland area in an elementary school that does what I do. So every day I get to connect. I get to reach out. I get to organize. I get to provide opportunities for our students. And just your question is, how do I figure out which one? So as I'm seeing our young people grow, I look at some of the deficiencies that we may have, or I'm like, they need this and they can use that. So I search out those organizations. So like etiquette, I was like, who doesn't need etiquette class? So I reached out to a young lady who wants to start an etiquette program. And maybe it's not for everybody, but you never know. If you don't bring them in, and I have had organizations come in and we were like, the parents were like, well, no, that's okay. But I've still brought in organizations for you to think about and to, ask questions. So I would say just thinking outside the box is your key and finding out what will help your student grow.
Cool. So final question. What is the next iteration of your role, your position, next year? What's coming?
So a lot of family events. And so we partnered with some organizations that have come in and work with our families. So this year we had 3 family fun events. My goal is to have at least 7 or 8 next year. And it's an opportunity for students and families to be together. More of our community inside the school, building relationships outside the building, and just bringing in as many programs as I can. And I think the biggest thing for me is to continue to network, to continue to be out there asking questions of our students. What do they want next? What else? What else? And so just partnering with organizations and people like yourself who came in to do my poetry slam.
Poetry slam was everything.
And just, it's reaching out. It's reaching out. There's no set plan. So the sky is the limit with no plan. And so the sky is the limit. I'm reaching for everything that I can for the students at St. Thomas.
So how do parents, if someone's watching and would like to get in touch with you to come do a tour of the school or just talk to you more about what's happening at STA, how can they make that happen?
They can email me at SISSA@STAPOSTLE school.com.
That's a long one, but I got it.
Long one, and you can't do anything else. You can call the school at 773-667-1142. I encourage you to follow us on social media. I'm the social media person as well. So there you will see a lot of the insights on what's going on. I do highlight some of our after school programs, and I highlight what we're doing in the school as well. So if you're looking for a school that is actively engaged in academics, I ask you to follow us and see what's next for St. Thomas.
Thank you so much, Miss Issa. This is good. An amazing conversation. I know it's going to help somebody. The thing about doing community partnerships and understanding who to partner with, understanding the needs of the students and their parents, like it's a nuanced thing that either some people or some schools just do nothing with it or don't think as strategically about who the partners are like you have. So I know this is going to be some good information for people. Thank you so very much and have a great rest of your day.
You as well. Thank you so much for having me.